Again, I'm becoming more fascinated with I'm very careful with the language we use now.
Yeah.
So it's funny that some people are talking about sense of self, some consciousness, some human. The human is very much me, who I am. A machine could have a consciousness, but it couldn't have a human. It couldn't be human. You know, and we still. So are we using the language? I'm just very interested in who's using which language on which thing. You know,
the machine can't be human unless it already is human, and that's the little paradox I was asking you.
And so
because a machine is actually the product of human labor. It's the objectification of human effort and work.
And so this idea of a human changing, are they still human? But then we've got this definition of what is human, and this changes us. And we're also talking about our sense of self, and that changing, and all those separate things. Is it human or is it, or we're changing the physicality of the brain, you know, changing the physical object, which changes the human object. Does that change sense of self? It's all, it's how we define all those questions.
Yeah.
You know, the questions aren't quite the same question. They're all different. And I've just been fascinated with who says what, which term.
Tell us more.
On the whole, emergence of consciousness really made me like question my own consciousness, kind of, in that like, I know I'm conscious, what do I almost, you know, like I know I'm living, breathing, and doing things, but I almost don't know how like I got here, so to speak. And I think that maybe when we pursue consciousness in robots, we can't really compare it to our consciousness because we can't really articulate it. So robots could have consciousness in the future, but it could be something totally different. And we wouldn't be able to recognize that as consciousness because we can't perceive it ourselves, you know? So I think that...
Not until they tell us what it is.
Yeah. So I think that that was very interesting to me, and the differentiation between intelligence and consciousness in robots, and that we can already say that they're intelligent because they can use in chess, but consciousness is a whole other world of things that we don't really understand.
What the 60s and 70s taught us about artificial intelligence is that we have to change our definition of intelligence. You know, that was the primary thing to come out of most of that, was the definition of what intelligent activity is changed, because machines can play chess. The thought, I guess, you know, the idea, there was this idea that, I mean, we've had this conversation, but before then it was, if a machine never played chess, it would be an intelligent robot. And all of a sudden we had this little box that could play chess, but it wasn't what we would call intelligent. And so the perception of what we would, in the 50s we all thought in 10, 20 years we'd have walking, talking robots.
So
and then they learned that what we actually have is a box that can play chess. So the definition of what we thought changed.
So the problem there is, what we're learning is that the problem was with our initial naivete, right? The problem was with our starting point and what we assumed. We assumed that we had some kind of fairly adequate and fairly accurate understanding of consciousness and intelligence. And what this experiment demonstrated to us was the inadequacies of our own initial concepts.
Very much.
I just have a question sort of developed about the almost validity of transhumanism as something just different from advancements in technology, just because of the idea sort of about how the people who are preaching transhumanism, like Kurzweil and Strzok, who are really, if you look into what they write and what they say, they're really sort of on the fringe of it, and they associate themselves with other people on the fringe, like Degrassi and such. And it sort of makes me wonder, how come these people on the fringe are having to qualify this as transhumanism when people who are developing things like the Terminator arm that runs off of like muscle senses so amputees can still have hands and stuff, just consider it scientific progress? Why does it have to be something separate? Why are the people who use it separate, to use buzzwords like the singularity of transhumanism, do so to preach their own meaning rather than just technological advancement?
I'm going to let Philip answer that one.
Honestly, I think people on the fringes, like you're talking about, like to use the word transhumanism as a buzzword, but to me, I almost think of the people that I would consider transhumanists, or like in that TED Talk. They're not up there spouting transhumanism as a philosophy. They're hinting at it. They're saying, maybe we can make people smarter, and it's just one line in a talk given. To me, those are more the transhumanists in the world, are the people.
And I get that, but what I guess what I'm asking is, then why call that, I guess what I'm, yeah. It feels like it's very strange when it almost seems like maybe they're not the minority voice, but they're not the loudest voice in the group. And it seems more of what they're talking about is technological and human advancement without having to call it the buzzword. And what's associated with the buzzword are, wannabe prophets like Kurzweil. And so it just seems strange, that, I don't know, to try and learn about transhumanism when what we should really be learning about is these advancements and this sort of progress that's being made rather than these sort of fringe people.
Yeah,
I
I guess to me, when I think of transhumanism, I think of the more moral, philosophical, political implications. People have to be thinking about that, and that's more to me what transhumanism really is about.
I guess my issue with fans having read Kurzweil or something, so it's that they don't seem to be focusing on what's full of that.
But what I'm seeing here is that it's language again. That certain fields call things, use different terminology. So someone repairing a medical condition will discuss it in a different way to someone talking about making humans super smart compared to repairing Alzheimer's. They will use different language.
I guess like the way I compare, it's like if these people in these TED Talks are saying, we're selling snake oil and it does this, while you have Kurzweil saying, we're selling a miracle elixir and it can do all of this even though it's still just snake oil. I mean,
But this isn't snake oil.
this is, I guess one of them, it's telling you what it is and this is what it'll do, and the other one's a bunch of bloated promises.
I
I
think
really didn't like Kurzweil.
one thing that might be happening with that is, I think Kurzweil and the others are talking in the future tense. They
And I
they
get
might be
that.
talking towards what we're going towards rather than what's happening right now.
And I get that, but just like a good portion of their stuff is, if you look into it, you look into why they believe these things, it's less, this is how the future's going to be, and more, this is how I want the future to be for me, because I don't want my dad to die, or I'm terribly afraid of dying myself. And it sort of feels like this bias, if you look into it, is almost hobbles their argument, because this seems to be the only reason they'll search for any answer that will allow them to have the right thing to say concerning the thing they're so terrified of. And that's what really sort of bothers me, is because I don't want to say they're appropriating transhumanism, because they do have some things to say that do make sense, but it's just that little bit of zealousness and insanity that makes me think, why it feels like they're separating themselves from just sort of human advancement and human progress as a field, because maybe they know that they're just sort of, if they called it that, it would drag that down.
Subconsciously or consciously, everything we do is selfish in nature.
Speak up about it.
Everything we do is selfish in nature. Like,
You need to read more Dawkins.
corporal self-preservation, like your subconscious guides your conscious, like everything you think, yeah, make me better. It's always in the back of your mind. Like you're working on stuff to advance the world, and I'm like, you guys have this over here. Oh yeah, I made this.
Is anyone?
The way I see it is, I really very much agree with everyone here on this. On the one hand, we have this highly polemical argument, and you might say, oh, that's just kind of like stirring the pot to stir the pot, right? It's just getting out there and making people afraid and coming up with wild scenarios. But then take a step back from that and say, well, what is actually the work that Kurzweil and people like Kurzweil are doing? They're posing a debate in the public realm that a lot of people have access to who won't take the time to understand a TED Talk or something like that. So it has a role to play. The extreme polemical language has a role to play. Now the trick is, with any major cultural change, is that if you let polemics run wild, you'll end up, people will become frightened and you'll have lots of confusion and lots of extreme reactions. So this is where Phil's point is, the real work of transhumanism happens in the lab, it happens in experiments, it happens in helping patients and engaging in trials and gradually moving things forward in a little bit, a little step by little step. So rather than just dismissing Kurzweil and company as wild polemicists and mad prophets, it's sometimes useful to say, well, what is the work that they're doing and how does it assist the work of scientists in the lab? And people in the humanities want to take the novels like Galatea 2.2 seriously along with the work in the lab. And so how does it assist the more modest approaches? But also, in a way, the polemicists are fighting battles ahead of the conflict. So they're preparing the ground for future cultural progress, right? They're getting people, they're scaring people. But okay, when you get scared, what do? You say, finally, when you have a minute to catch your breath, you say, is this really all that scary? So there's a rhetorical function to the polemical debate, is basically the point I think.
And I disagree with that, is that like, very well, his whole point is that there isn't going to be anything to be scared of. And it's just sort of like, everything's going to work out great.
Which scares people.
Yeah.
It's just this idea that everything's going to work out great at this one time, and it also just works out for him perfectly. But everything will work out great. There will be no more separation. There will be no more haves and have-nots. And just also sort of dismissing the fact that he cannot prove this, and that there's all these really, not even that subtle, fascist undertones to everything he's talking about, but he won't discuss that. He'll say, if you're not an inventor or an entrepreneur, you have no idea what you're talking about.
You know, sometimes when you encounter a rhetorician or a sophist or a polemicist on this order, there's only one thing to do. It's what Socrates does to Gorgias. He walks away.
You see, even 2,000 years ago, they knew what to do. All right, guys, those who are going to Australia, can you just stay behind for 2 minutes?